Loneliness is one of the most painful human experiences. It creeps in during the quiet hours, when the world feels far away and no one seems to see you. For many, it feels like emptiness, a void that swallows joy, connection, even hope. But what if loneliness isn't a curse? What if it's a doorway? C.S. Lewis, who knew both deep friendship and deep solitude, believed loneliness had purpose, not as punishment, but as invitation. He once wrote, "We are born helpless. As soon as we are fully conscious, we discover loneliness. We need others physically, emotionally, intellectually. We need them if we are to know anything, even ourselves." In this, Lewis touches on something profound. Loneliness is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a signal that you are human, that your heart longs for communion, for meaning, for belonging. But the mistake we often make is thinking that loneliness must be filled immediately. We rush to distract it, to numb it, to replace it. We scroll, we binge, we pretend. But the loneliness persists. Why? Because it's not here to be escaped, it's here to be listened to. Loneliness has a voice, and if we're willing to listen, it begins to speak. It says, "This ache you feel is sacred." It points to something real. Beneath loneliness is longing, not just for other people, but for connection with your own soul, with truth, with God. This is the deeper layer. C.S. Lewis explored not loneliness as mere absence, but as a space where something larger wants to meet you. He experienced this himself after the death of his beloved wife, Joy, in his grief journal. A grief observed, he writes, "Her absence is like the sky, spread over everything." Yet even in this devastating solitude, Lewis found insight not just about loss, but about love and about himself. He didn't hide from the silence. He entered it. He allowed loneliness to become a place of encounter, and in doing so, he discovered that the pain of being alone could open a deeper awareness of presence, not all within others, but in God. In your own life, you may feel abandoned, misunderstood, isolated in a room full of people. But what if this ache isn't just emptiness but an echo, a signal from your soul that you were made for more than noise and surface-level living? In the next part, we'll explore how our culture tries to erase loneliness and why that very erasure may be keeping us from the meaning we seek. We live in a culture terrified of silence. Everywhere we turn, there is noise, constant stimulation, endless content, always something to scroll, to buy, to watch. We're told that being alone is something to avoid, something unnatural, even shameful. If you're not busy, if you're not surrounded by people, if you're not connected at all times, the world assumes something is wrong. But this obsession with distraction is not freedom, it's fear. Fear of being still, fear of meeting yourself, fear of listening to what the quiet moments might reveal. C.S. Lewis recognized this danger. He warned of a world that numbs the soul in the name of entertainment. In the Screwtape Letters, the elder demon advises, "We will make the whole universe a noise in the end. The melodies and silences of heaven will be shouted down." What Lewis understood is that noise isn't neutral. It can become a weapon, a way to drown out the very voice that could heal us. And nowhere is this more dangerous than when we are lonely, because loneliness drives us to search, to ask, to feel. And if we meet it with noise, we miss the invitation. We lose the chance to turn inward, to reflect, to wrestle, to grow. True healing begins when we stop running, when we stop pretending we're fine, when we finally say, "I am lonely," and allow that truth to soften, not harden, our hearts. Loneliness faced with courage becomes sacred space. A wilderness, yes, but also a temple. A place where something divine may whisper back. This doesn't mean isolation is ideal. Humans are made for connection. Lewis affirmed that friendship, love, and community are essential to spiritual and emotional flourishing. But he also knew that even in the richest community, the soul still longs for something deeper, for communion, not only with others, but with the transcendent. And that longing often becomes clearest in solitude. So while the culture says escape, Lewis says enter. While the world says avoid, Lewis says attend. Attend to your loneliness. Let it reveal what truly matters. Because the purpose of loneliness is not to break you, it is to wake you. In the next block, we'll explore how C.S. Lewis found friendship not in spite of loneliness, but through attend, how you can begin to turn your own solitude into sacred connection. C.S. Lewis understood something we often forget. Loneliness, when embraced rather than avoided, can become the very ground where friendship is born. Real friendship, not the shallow kind built on convenience or distraction, but the kind rooted in shared meaning, shared longing, shared soul. Lewis once said, "Friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, 'You too, I thought I was the only one.'" This is the miracle of honest loneliness. It reminds us of our need. And from that need, it opens the heart to see others more clearly. When you accept your solitude instead of fighting it, you become more receptive, more present. You stop trying to impress or pretend. You start noticing others who are also searching, also longing. In this quiet recognition, real connection becomes possible. This is how Lewis's greatest friendships were formed, with Tolkien, with Barfield, with the men who weren't afraid to question deeply, to share their doubts, their faith, their grief, Their fellowship was not loud or crowded, it was intentional, sacred, filled with reflection. Their bond was born not in the absence of loneliness, but in its honest expression. And Lewis didn't just find human friendship in solitude. He also discovered something even deeper: renewed connection with God. In his most painful seasons, especially after Joy's death, Lewis found himself confronting the silence of heaven. He wrote, "When you are happy, so happy that you have no sense of needing him, you will be so it feels welcomed with open arms. But go to him when your need is desperate, when all other help is vain. And what do you find? A door slammed in your face." These are the words of a man wrestling honestly with divine absence. And yet, Lewis didn't walk away from the silence. He stayed, he waited, he listened. And slowly, something shifted. The silence wasn't absence, it was presence in a form he didn't yet understand. This is the mystery of loneliness. When you stop expecting it to be fixed, it begins to transform. It becomes a space not only for human connection, but for sacred encounter, a space where God speaks in whispers, in waiting, in quiet strength. Loneliness, then, is not the end of connection, but the beginning of a deeper one. Not proof that something is wrong, but proof that something more is possible. In the next section, we'll explore how you can begin to walk through your own loneliness, not as a victim, but as a pilgrim finding purpose, peace, and presence in the very silence you once feared. To walk through loneliness with purpose is to become a pilgrim on an inner journey. It means recognizing that solitude is not a dead end, but a path. C.S. Lewis teaches us that loneliness is a companion, inviting us to deeper self-knowledge and spiritual growth. This journey asks for patience and courage. It requires that you sit with discomfort rather than flee from it. Instead of rushing to fill the silence, you learn to listen to the ache, to the memories, to the quiet voice of your soul. In doing so, loneliness becomes a teacher. It shows you the shadows you hide, the fears you avoid, and the truths you deny. But it also reveals your resilience, your longing for meaning, and your capacity for love. As a pilgrim, you move step by step not toward escape, but toward embrace. You begin to see that your loneliness connects you to the universal human story. Everyone feels it. Everyone wrestles with it. You're not alone in your solitude. This realization opens a door to compassion for yourself and for others. It softens the harsh judgments that loneliness can breed. You no longer see yourself as broken or abandoned, but as part of a larger, unfolding mystery. Spiritual traditions echo this truth. They invite the pilgrim to trust the journey, to surrender to the unknown, and to find God not only in joy and community but also in the silent spaces between. Lewis's own life illustrates this beautifully. His grief and loneliness after loss became the fertile ground for his deepest writings, his richest insights, and his closest friendships. In that sacred solitude, he found strength he never knew he had. So what does this mean for you? It means your loneliness is not a barrier but a bridge, a threshold to new understanding and new connection. It means you can step into your solitude not with fear, but with curiosity and hope. In the final block, we'll explore practical ways to honor your loneliness and transform it into a source of meaning and peace. Honoring loneliness is an act of courage and grace. It means welcoming the ache without judgment and learning to sit with your own company as a friend rather than an enemy. One practical step is to create intentional solitude moments, carved out daily to be alone with your thoughts, feelings, and spiritual longings. Use these times for reflection, journaling, or prayer. Another is to practice mindfulness, noticing when loneliness arises and observing it without resistance. Ask yourself, what is this loneliness telling me? What does my soul need right now? Embrace creativity as a companion in solitude, whether through writing, art, music, or movement as a way to express what words cannot fully capture. Cultivate small communities where vulnerability is welcomed, so loneliness doesn't become isolation but a shared human experience. Remember, loneliness and connection are two sides of the same coin. As you honor your solitude, you open yourself to deeper empathy and compassion for others. C.S. Lewis's journey shows us that loneliness need not be a sentence but a sacred passage. It invites you to grow, to listen, and to find meaning beyond the ache. So let your loneliness be a teacher, not a tormentor, a doorway, not a prison. And through this sacred solitude, you may discover the profound truth Lewis embraced, that even in loneliness, you are never truly alone. In closing, if this reflection has resonated with you, subscribe to the Sower of Meaning for weekly insights on emotional growth, spiritual courage, and the search for purpose. Share your story or thoughts in the comments. What has loneliness taught you? Remember, loneliness is not the absence of connection but the beginning of a deeper journey toward meaning and belonging.